Happy Saturday, folks. On July 5 here, I'm doing Christmas in July with the hat. Why not? Hopefully you guys had a great 4th. Everyone's feeling pretty good. Did the fireworks, kid having a good time. That's what it's all about. But we are back to business in regards to the Detroit Lions, as now this is the last pretty much holiday before we hit training camp. In today's video, we're going to be doing a mailbag segment and a lot of questions. I think around almost 20 questions we're going to go through. I'm going to try to spitfire some of these answers to get it quick for you, since a lot of people want to talk about training camp and the Lions, waiting for a mailbag, so we're going to get after it. But before we get into today's video, do me a big-time favor. Smash that like button. That really does help. Right now, we're in the cheeks time of Lions content where there's nothing going on. The videos suck, so all the likes that will happen makes me happy. Let's go. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into the questions here and get after it for the mailbag. Again, we got a lot of questions in today's show, so we're going to get after it here. We're going to start with one. Should the Lions add another quarterback? Look, the Lions could add another quarterback. I wouldn't expect anything at this moment. Wait for training camp for Double H and Kyle Allen to go after it. If Hendon Hooker has not developed at least by a week that they feel that he needs to be at for the Lions in training camp, they could bring in another guy. But again, we got 4 preseason games. Hendon Hooker is going to be featured in these preseasons game, and I fully expect it's going to be him versus whoever. Wait for a while. If he doesn't develop after 3-4 weeks of camp here, the Lions could look elsewhere if other teams release quarterbacks that are better, i.e. the Cleveland Browns, where they have a ton of quarterbacks. In the comments right now, do you want the Lions to add a quarterback? Y for yes and for no. Why didn't the Lions draft an edge? Well, they did draft an edge, Hassan, in the 6th round, but he was talking about early. Well, now you can kind of look at the reason why. If you look at the offensive line, Frank Ragnow retired. They doubled off on the offensive line. Hassan, they did fell the 6th round. That's what they picked up. They trust Marcus Davenport, and I don't necessarily trust him, but they do. That's why. We'll see what happens going forward. Who is the biggest surprise in the Lions roster right now? You know, interesting, I look at the Lions roster and all the players. I say Grant Stewart here is probably the guy that I would say is the biggest surprise on the roster. I expected him to be more a special teamer. Not only is he does do special teams, he's actually doing really good at the linebacker position, OTs and minicamp. That's a positive surprise, a great surprise, because it builds the depth of the linebacking room each much better. He's not a rookie. He is a veteran, so he could make a positive impact early, and that's great news for the Lions. If the Lions look rusty in preseason, should we worry? No, because a lot of the preseason is going to be a lot of the backups. You're not going to see a lot of Jared Goff in this offense. They may not even play – Jared Goff may not even play a single down in the preseason, so I wouldn't worry. There's going to be rust. It's going to take a little bit of time as they start to worry if they're having rust by week 4. If they still are rusty by week 4 of the NFL season, week 5 of the NFL season, then I would probably be a little bit more worried if it's not starting to get a little bit better from that standpoint. But preseason, I'm not worried about anything about preseason except for development of the young players, see who's going to make the back end of the roster, and injuries. Those are my preseason concerns when I look at everything from there. Next question, who is Cheeks on the team? Great question. Gave me an idea, too. So when the NFL season, the regular season is going to happen, we're going to have Cheeks Player of the Game, and we're going to have Cheeks Player of the Month. And so we'll do Cheeks Player of the Team from last year, since we can't do it right now. Cheeks Player of the Team, it's funny. Not a lot of cheeky players on this team. I said this before. If you've been watching me for the past 7 years, I'm always complaining about a player or two on the team that somehow made the roster at the 53. You're not going to see that from me this year. I look at all of the roster. There's not a player that I think is Cheeks. There's good players, there's better players, and then there's excellent players. I feel like they did phenomenal in the depth. I don't think that there's really a crappy player on this team. There may be a player that is not as talented or we may not as the most. But unlike years past, to be honest with you, I don't have that much. I don't think there is that many bad players. Biggest need right now. Oh my goodness. I don't really. I'm going to just go with Za'Darius Smith. That's my personal preference from a fan me standpoint. I would say this. From a Lions roster, from what they believe, they don't believe that there is a need. But I do think that if the Lions could get edge as Za'Darius Smith, that would give me a bit of a sigh of relief. Still a little bit now worried about the center position, but there's nothing that we can do. That is going to have to just be played out as the season goes along. We did the best that we could do with that situation. They can't really bring in another guy that's going to help out, in my opinion. So it's more of the development of Tate Ratledge there. So I'll go with Za'Darius Smith. What do you guys think? What is your biggest need? Let me know in the comments. How many wins will the Lions have in 2025? I'm going to go with 10 to 11 now with the retirement of Frank Ragnow. Again, that's not a bad thing. I think the Lions could lose one a little bit earlier in the year that maybe we potentially could have won just because potentially of miscommunication, a little bit of rust, that type of stuff. So I'm going to go with 10 to 11. I don't care about how the Lions start out. I don't. I want them simply to win the NFC North and get to a Super Bowl, so it's how they finish. I'm not big into wins and losses this year. I'm not. I just want to know, can they win the North? Can they go ahead and get the job done to the Super Bowl? Overall thoughts on the schedule. It's a tough-ass schedule. It is. It's really tough. With that said, iron sharpens iron. And we're going to be going through the gauntlet, and that's just going to make us stronger for the postseason. It is. Again, I'm not worried about wins and losses this year. Would you rather be, 15-2 going against Cheeks teams, or would you rather be 12 wins and you going against one of the hardest schedules in football? I'll take that 12 wins, man, because you know that the iron sharpens iron. You know that it's going to be a situation where, they're 100% going to be better, right? They're going to 100% be a team that can fight in the postseason. Folks, subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 87,000 subscribers. 3.5 weeks from play-by-play commentary, and the channel's going to explode, and I fully expect to get to 100K this year. Okay, I already did that one. Let's see. Will Lions make a splash move before week 1? No, I'm not going to make a splash move before week 1. Don't expect to trade. Any big trade, right? They could do, I guess, a low-end 53-man roster move, but big trade, no. Don't expect a splash move. The biggest splash move that I could possibly see, and I don't really consider a splash, is bringing back Za'Darius Smith. Will J-Mo get extended? Yes, after this season. I don't believe he'll get extended before this season. I think he's taken the next step. I think he is maturing as a human being. Now he just needs to mature on the field. I think he'll show that this year. He'll do a great job. He'll get an extension, and the Lions fans will be happy. That's what I fully expect. Grade the Lions offseason. Well, with the retirement of Frank Ragnow, I'm going to give it a C+. And there's nothing the Lions could do about that. Let's keep it a buck. There's not a damn thing they can do. It's sprung at them. They actually did the best that they could do, in my opinion. So it was a B+ or a B, and with Frank going down, it dropped significantly. But again, that's not the fault of the Lions. That's just, it happened. It's bad luck. It's nothing you could do, right? So don't think that's being salty on the Lions there. What is the biggest concerns heading into 2025, not 2024 here? Offensive lines, Frank Ragnow position, edge position, opposite of Hutchinson, in the health of Marcus Davenport. That is my concerns now, right? So let's see, next question here. Going on here. Ooh, good one here. Who's better, Lions or the Eagles? Right now, I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles, that they're the better football team. I think they are. All around, they're the better football team. Doesn't mean that the Lions can become better. But their edge room, or their whole defensive line is great. Their depth is great. They've just won a Super Bowl. I have to give it to them right now, that they're the best team in football. Rank the NFC North. I think, rank the NFC North. I don't know, but the NFC North and the rest of the divisions, I would say is probably the best division in the NFL. Ranking the Lions, I got them as the first team. I'm going to have to go give it to the Vikings as the second team, and I got to give it to the Packers as the third, and then Chicago's the fourth. Not much has changed where I feel like it should be. I think all teams could be relatively close in win-loss schedule, so it's not a negative thing if you're the fourth team in this division. It's a damn good division. It is what it is. Do you trust Marcus Davenport as edge 2? No, I don't. I don't trust his ability on the field. I don't. He's got to prove me wrong here, and that's fine. He's got to do that. That's his job. You know, he's been injured. That's not our responsibility to believe it. Our responsibility is to see it at this point, right? You got to see it. You got to see it to believe it. That's his job to prove it on the field and stay healthy. But I personally don't. Hopefully he does prove it. What players should the Lions add to this football team? Za'Darius Smith would be the one I would consider that the Lions should add to this team. Other than that, if a player is released that is really good from another football team or other teams, and that it's an upgrade over we have, I have no problem, Lions, picking up that said player, but we don't know that yet. Team's not cut down anything close to that. Folks, give me your thoughts about today's video. Adios.